The May 26th patch for Street Fighter 6 is here, and with that comes changes to all the characters, including Juri. I'm going to go over what you need to know about the changes for Juri and how you can use these changes to win more games. To take note, anything involving Modern, I'm not going to go over because I really can't speak upon that. The one big takeaway from Modern that I see is that the assisted button into medium will no longer give you her forward medium punch. It will now give you the crouching medium punch. This is a great change because it unlocks her bread and butter, which is useful for Classic, but now Modern players can use it. So the first change is going to be to her crouching light kick. Attack hitbox reduced downwards. The adjustment was made so this attack does not hit attacks with invincibility around the feet. I'm assuming the hitbox for this attack was a bit higher than it should have been, so it's possible that moves that have low invul on their attacks like this, maybe they would have hit because the hitbox was too high. Crouching medium kick. The hurt box around the feet after frame 22 of this technique expanded upward only when the attack misses. Hurt box around the feet remains until the end of recovery only when the attack misses. We see a lot of this throughout the patch with characters that have cancelable low medium kick. So essentially, if you whiff this move, you're much more punishable and easier to punish. Essentially, it's to take away some of the value of crouching medium kick while still giving the utility. So if you whiff it, even from far away, you're going to be punishable. But the answer to this is just whenever you throw this move out, or whenever you throw any move, just make sure it actually connects with the opponent. Jumping medium punch, damage change from 700 to 500. Chain combo damage change from 500 to 300. Before we get into this change specifically, if you didn't know, the damage for Feng Shui Engine is different if you chain into it versus if you just use the move. Case in point, standing medium punch is 600 damage. But if I chain into the move, the damage goes to 400, even though it's 100% of the damage scaling. Jump medium punch doing less damage overall is important because our bread and butter in the air started with jump medium punch. It's less damage, but it's still a very powerful tool. Moving along, Renko kicks reduce the horizontal blowback from when the first attack hits. Added a new attack hitbox to the second attack that is only applied when the opponent is in a combo, making it easier to hit opponents after the first attack. This is for the Feng Shui Engine version of forward heavy punch. It will be hard to see since this is the new version, but if you look at how they get knocked back, because of how they get knocked back while under Feng Shui Engine, this now allows Juri in situations where the juggle might get a little bit weird to be more consistent with the juggle for forward heavy punch. Basically, more consistency. But you'll still see situations like that. And the forward heavy punch change is very important specifically because of one change that we're going to talk about now. And that's going to be Korenzan, which is her back heavy kick. Change the hit effect on the second attack when it lands on a mid-air opponent from a knockdown slam to a ground bound. So when I first heard about this change, I assumed it would be like this here. But when you see it in practice, the knockdown doesn't look all that crazy. And even though the knockdown doesn't bounce as much as that, it still does allow some OTG combos like this. So if you hit your opponent who's off the ground with the back hard kick, you can combo afterwards. And that might not look too crazy because technically they're kind of still in the air, but even if they're completely on the ground, you can still juggle. So when would this be useful? Even though I haven't looked at damage numbers, these are some of the situations. On a wall splat, you can do back hard kick and then pick them up off the ground. After a drive impact, we're used to doing combos like this. Now, after a drive impact, we can do something along these lines. If there's a time where you can launch, you can back hard kick and bring them back down. In situations under Feng Shui Engine, combos like this wouldn't work. And they still don't work based on the hitbox of crouching hard punch. But now, you can do the back hard kick and then do forward heavy punch because of the off-the-ground nature of it. And because of the ground bounce, we can also do OD and Kensatsu, get another ground bounce, and then go back into a combo. Keep in mind, these routes are super unoptimal, but we're just going over what we know and just to get a feel for how things work. Whenever I talked about Feng Shui Engine, I always talked about how this move was like a normalizer. There would be times where you would use Feng Shui Engine and your victim would kind of like blow away from you. Or there would be some juggles that you needed to like bring them back in, and the back hard kick was good to capture. I think this is one of the best changes that she's gotten in the patch, and the more we play around with it, the more we'll understand about it, and the more we'll be able to control it better. Let's talk about her Death Crest. Only the second attack can be cancelled into super arts on hit. When they talk about the second attack, they mean the last hit. Technically, standing medium punch does not count toward this target combo. This is the first hit. This is the second hit. So now, on hit, you can cancel into super art. If you didn't see, I posted a 1-minute video on the changes for Juri, and we saw when the patch first dropped, this was bugged. But now, as we see, it's working as intended. She can cancel this into Feng Shui Engine. And this is a good case for why back hard kick is a good change, because if you look at the dash here, You see how uncontrolled he is on the juggle? But now with the changes to back hard kick, you can use back hard kick to capture, and it's more controlled. And you can also go into her level 3. I'm still a little bit disappointed that you can't drive rush cancel this, but beggars can't be choosers. Delayed the transition timing from the first medium punch attack. Before this change, there was no gap in between these two attacks here. But now, they added a gap in between, which means if a person hits a button, they could be hit. But since there is a gap, that also means that people can mash through it as well. One hand gives, the other takes. Added 1 frame of recovery to the first attack and the recovery of the opponent's block so that the first 2 attacks must be blocked. The advantage on block has not been changed. Basically, they did these things to make sure that there is a gap in between. Adjusted the opponent's blowback on the first and second attacks. I'm assuming these changes were just to make sure everything flowed correctly, and just to make sure that the super juggles at the end work properly. And I keep asking, is this target combo good now? Well, the long and the short of it is, yeah, this is a great buff. If you want to combo into level 1, you usually would do this combo here. This combo ends at 2640. But if you were to use the Death Crest route instead, we get 2840. So not only is this a damage buff, it's also easier to perform. So times where you would do this combo here, you now would do this combo. It's an okay change. It's a welcome change. Normal and Overdrive Fuhajin added 8 fixed frames of hit stop when clashing with a fireball. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what this change means. I mean, I kind of understand this change. If we look at the frame meter, there's 4 active frames and 21 frames of recovery on the fireball clash. But there's something weird that if you hit it late, it adds another 8 frames to the active frames. I'm not sure what that means and the implications of that, because it's not always. Here we have 4 because I hit it kind of close to the startup of the Fuhajin. But if I hit it early, I get this extended one. I'm not sure. Oh, wait. I think I see it. I think I understand. Hold on. Fuhajin usually is startup of 9 frames, 4 frames active, and 21 frames of recovery. If I hit it close to the startup, it adds on 8 frames to the startup of the move while only having 4 frames of recovery. But if I hit the Fuhajin really early, if we notice, that changes. I still have the 9 frames of startup, but then we have those additional 8 frames going toward the active frames. Basically, no matter how I hit it, the startup and active frames must add up to be 21 frames. If you hit it really early, we notice the startup is 9, but then they added on the frames to the active frames, which add up to be 21 frames. I guess this is to normalize her frames when using Fuhajin, and I guess in the past, if you hit it a certain way, you could recover faster. Think of it like her fireball. If you throw the fireball, it starts up in 15 frames and travels for 30 frames. If we're close, the startup is 15 frames, it traveled for 1 frames, and then you have 29 frames of recovery. Again, total of which is 45 frames. So in the case of Fuhajin, the startup and active frames must be 21 frames no matter what. Interesting change. I don't know what this means. Maybe this would mean something if we could cancel this to level 3 on Fireball Clash, but maybe in another patch. This also applies to her OD Fuhajin, which got a lot of significant changes and we'll go into right now. The first thing, Overdrive Fuhajin is now 12 frames, down from 16 frames. This makes OD Fuhajin the second fastest Fuhajin option. So this should be easier to clash with Overdrive Fireballs. And this is not new. You can always clash with OD Fireballs. Now, it would be great if I could cancel into something from here, but again, that's for a different day. Change active frames from 4 to 6 frames. Again, this just makes it easier to clash with fireballs. So, it's a nice option to clear the stage, but it costs 2 bars. Change recovery from 25 frames to 21 frames. So this move will also recover quicker. Change technique length from 42 to 38 frames. As a whole, this move will start up and recover much quicker. What does this mean? This move is now 4 frames quicker. This is super important for a few reasons. One, now you can cancel this from lights. Anytime that you can use OD moves instead of a drive rush, that's good for meter management. Also, we can get more damage in this situation here if we want to spend and use the 2 bars. This also means from this situation, we don't have to cancel the super. You can do something along this lines. Or if you hit a few lights and you want to go into super, typically your option was to do this really hard, cancel, or to spend the 3 bars and go into this combo here. And it even does a little bit more damage than using 3 bars for the drive rush. Something to take note of, because of this change, some combos that you're used to might not work anymore. In this case here, OD Fuhajin is too fast and doesn't juggle. But if you slightly delay the hard kick, you can now get the juggle. And I believe you're even higher. And if you use the change the back hard kick, we can get even more off this situation. Overall, from far away, this is a great change because if we get the hit, we can always confirm into more damage. And this change is excellent coupled in with the next change. And now the most significant change that Juri got in this balance patch is normal Inkensatsu. Added initial scaling of 20% and a combo scaling of 20%. Essentially, now this matches the enhanced version of Inkensatsu. But most importantly, change advantage on hit from +3 to +5. Now, when you don't have a stock, you can use normal Inkensatsu and combo into a light kick. The next change is that there's increased pushback, so you won't be able to do something like this here, or something like this. But since standing light kick has such far range, you can combo into a standing light kick. As the match starts, a lot of times Juris will back up so that they get the first door so they can combo after Inkensatsu. But now that you can combo after the normal Inkensatsu, you don't need to use meter to get additional damage to start building your stores. If you see an opening where you can whiff punish, you can go for it. Because of the pushback, take note when you're far away, you might not hit the light kick. With the change to OD Fuha, you now can do normal Inkensatsu, light kick, OD Fuha. And you can do this without getting a store, and you can use this to build your first store. And you can get additional damage by going into a DP. Or going into a super. And since you used OD Fuha, you get a store. You can go into her level 2, and you can use this combo here. This last Go Osatsu is now enhanced. Or, of course, if you need, you can go straight into her level 3. Usually going into Feng Shui Engine, we would use forward heavy punch into OD and Inkensatsu if we don't have a stock. I still think this is a great idea because even if we had to use the 2 bars, if we do our combo, if you notice, we get a lot of gauge back going into the safe jump. But what if we're burnt out? In this case, if we don't have meter and we don't have a stock, we can use light kick to bridge the gap, going into a less optimal safe jump, but a safe jump nonetheless. With the addition to drive recovery, usually we would do something along these lines here. But if we don't have a stock and don't want to use meter, again, we have options now. Overall, this is a great change, and I think the benefits of this will bear out over time. Let's talk Overdrive Go Osatsu. They made an adjustment, and I'm not exactly sure. I just think it normalized the follow-ups, but let's go over it. When canceling from a normal attack or special move into this attack, the transition timing from the third attack into Overdrive Sahasho Inkensatsu is now 1 frame earlier. This change is made to give this technique the same properties as using a Fuha stock to transition from OD Saihasho Inkensatsu to Overdrive Go Osatsu. I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to spend much time on this because I actually don't know what this means. I'm assuming it's just to normalize the transitions in between all the various moves. When using a Fuha stock, being able to cancel one of the moves into another, I'm assuming there was some kind of weirdness to it. I'll be honest, I haven't found anything about this. Normal and Overdrive Shirensen, this is going to be her dive kick follow-ups. Swapping over to Kail, we can actually see a little bit more about this. It now says, Juri follows the opponent after blowback. After she follows up, she follows the opponent a bit more, which is nice. Attack hitbox was expanded overall. So the Shiksen is the first hit, and the Shirensen is going to be the follow-up. Collision pushback expanded up and down only when the attack hits. So it's just to make sure all of these follow-ups don't whiff. Capcom, I need you to get in touch with your boy because you guys don't know how to test your own stuff. If only someone made videos about this. The easiest way to show this is Kail because his hitbox is high, but his hurtbox is around his head. So yes, it's a little bit easier to hit, most definitely. If you look at the hitbox for Kail in this case here, after I hit Kail on the hand here, this hurtbox is going to go away and only this part is going to remain. Kail is going to transition into his hit animation and this hitbox is just not going to be there. So all of these changes is to make sure the follow-up dive kick increases the hitbox of it so that it has more of a chance to hit this hurtbox when this hurtbox goes away. And this change works pretty decently, except for like when it doesn't. Because I think the second hit is more consistent, but the follow-ups after that sometimes can drop because they expanded the hit on the second hit, but I don't think they expanded the follow-ups. So as you can see, it's pretty consistent, but again, sometimes it's not. But there's 2 hot takes I want to give to you. 1, these kind of things will always happen. These kind of things do not happen when you just dive kick in. And in most cases, this situation will never come up. I had someone tell me that this situation comes up all the time. And why would you be trying to dive kick one of Dalsim's limbs? Especially since, I mean, we have the option to whiff punish it like that. But even still, with that said, it's still pretty consistent. But I'm gonna keep it a buck. We shouldn't expect niche situations like that to happen and to be consistent. And the second hot take is this change is unnecessary. And this should have been apparent since day 1 because the game itself teaches you to make sure this doesn't happen. If you don't want to drop your follow-up, it's a very easy way to make sure that this will never happen to you. As you go for a dive kick, you should always make sure you land a little bit and then the follow-up should be as you start to get close to the ground. Essentially, you want to drop a bit and then pick your opponent up. And this is important for combos like this here. This is a combo trial. This game asks you to hit this combo here, but it doesn't hit. The secret of it is that you have to drop a bit, and that gives you more frame advantage. If you look at Juri, she almost hits the ground, picks Kail back up, and that gives you more frame advantage. So again, this change is unnecessary because we already had a way to make sure this never happens. So please, delay your dive kicks. You'll never drop them. Next on the list is Sakai Huazan, which is her level 1. Updated so that the recovery of the button hold version is no longer 1 frame shorter than the normal version. So there'll be a normalized recovery for using her Fuha stock version and her normal version. Hurtbox on the first frame after the screen transition ends was expanded backwards. I'm assuming there was some kind of hidden hurtbox issue for this. Since they don't show us any footage, I have no idea what this means, but I guess she's more punishable, I guess? I make that sound like a nerf. It probably was just some kind of bug. And lastly, Kaizen Dankaidaku, which is her level 3/CA, just so that the hurt box on block or whiff matches the visual of the attack. Recovery for the defender on block changed from 25 frames to 20. Advantage on block has not changed. Huh? The wording of this doesn't make sense. Recovery for the defender on block is changed from 25 frames to 20, which means they recover faster. But the total amount of frames for recovery for Juri did not change at all. So if the defender recovers 5 frames quicker, that means you're more disadvantaged. Which makes sense because you were minus 31, but now you're minus 36. Advantage on block has not changed. Yeah, it kind of has. As for what it means that the hurt box on block or whiff matches the appearance of the attack, again, they haven't showed us what they changed, so it's kind of hard to see or to visualize what this means. These changes are just to normalize things, so it makes sense to the defenders and for the attacker. Overall, these changes are really good for Juri, but I don't think they're anything groundbreaking. It does give her more opportunities and changes a few combo routes. The weight of these changes are not going to make too much sense until we look at the game overall. Some of her bad matchups got better, but some of her normal matches got worse. I think you have to look at these changes holistically. It's still too soon to tell if these changes are going to move her up in the tier list. I personally don't think so, but overall consistency goes up, which means more opportunity to get more wins. Stay tuned to the channel and subscribe if you want to see more content about Juri. I make videos about Juri, and I hope that I can bring you new content with these new changes. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one.